Right, this video tutorial is a crash course in Microsoft PowerPoint, and it's designed to get the first time user up and running with the first presentation in a few minutes. It's intended for those that have been suddenly dumped with the task of coming up with a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation at short notice, and you've never used it before, or perhaps you've used it long ago and forgotten how to use it. So I promise this video tutorial for beginners will have no frills, and we'll just dive straight into it. Now, PowerPoint is part of Microsoft Office Suite, so obviously you'd have to have access to Microsoft Office, and you can either start it like in my case where I've got it pinned to the taskbar. I could start it up there, or you could come here to the Start menu, click that, and then look for Microsoft Office. There we go, and the drop down arrow will give you some options, and there's PowerPoint. So if you click on that, I'm using PowerPoint 2013, but it doesn't really matter if you've got an earlier version or a later version. Most of what we discuss here will still be applicable, and it'll even be applicable for Macs as well, so you'll all get some benefit out of this particular tutorial. Right, this is the first screen you'll be presented with, and these here are templates for themes. So you can choose a style that you would like the whole of your PowerPoint presentation to look like. And you can also go online. You can search online for other options, and there are various themes for it, like business, education, etc. But at this stage, I wouldn't recommend worrying too much about how pretty it looks. Just try and get your first draft down with all your information as quickly as possible. You can change the style or the look of your presentation at any stage. So the important thing is to get all your information into your first draft and then start fiddling with those finer points. I just go straight in on a blank presentation. You can start typing. I'm going to do a little presentation as an example for you. I'm going to call this one Farm Life, and I'll give it a subtitle, and we'll call it Panic, because that's what it's designed to overcome. Now, when you look at this first slide, it's very daunting, but don't worry about it. You don't have to know all of these features of PowerPoint in order to get your first PowerPoint presentation up and running. You can learn all these bits and pieces as you develop over time. But to get your first one up and running, we'll just go through the essentials. Now, just to give you a rough tour of what's going on here, these are tabs, and each tab has got a different set of tools that you can use, and this is called a ribbon, for instance. And then the ribbon, the tools are divided into various groups like images, illustrations, add-ons, blah blah blah, design. Now you look here, and right in the beginning we saw all those different themes. Well, you can get them here as well, so you don't have to worry about getting everything right from the beginning. And wherever you see a drop down arrow, you click it, you get more options. So there's a drop down arrow. So these are all the themes that you could choose from, that's already available to you, apart from those that you can search on the internet for. And then each theme, so if we go back to our page, now each theme has variants. So you could change the color, you could change the fonts, there are various effects you can go for, and there's background styles you can change. So there's an enormous amount of variation. So that's why I say don't get involved in that at this stage. Just get your first draft up and running as quickly as you possibly can, and then start refining after that. So now we've got our first slide, we've put what the title is and the subtitle. So now we can start thinking about our next slide. Now, how do you get your next slide? This is the editable area of your slide, and this is just a thumbnail to show you which slide you're working on. It'll have a dark border like that, the one you're working on. So now, if we want to make another slide, if we click there, now there you'll see one of our options here is a new slide. So obviously if you click that, you're going to get a new slide. But you can see the new slide is slightly different. The first slide was designed for title. Now this slide is just a generic slide that you can put whatever you like in. So, and what I like to do when I start a presentation is to put all my thoughts down as quickly as possible. So I like to have an index, or a menu if you want to call it that. The other thing I wanted to tell you is if you've got this presentation already in Word or Excel or something like that, one of the other Microsoft Office suites, then you're up and running very quickly, because for instance, I'll go to the Word document and I'll just whip out, I've put the index in here, so we'll just take that out and we'll copy it, and then we'll go back to our PowerPoint and I'll just click there and I will paste, and it gives me various options of pasting. That looks fine to me, I'll take that one. So there, I've got my basic outline for my presentation there. Now I've just got to produce slides for each of these subheadings or index. This is looking a bit stark and it's a bit bright, so let's at this stage I'll just show you how to put a theme into your PowerPoint presentation. So what you do is you go to the tab called Design, you click on that, and there's all your themes, and you find one that's kind of suits you. You see as you hover on it, so it comes up and gives you what it's going to look like. I quite like that one, so let's just take that for now. And you see here it's changed the other slide as well, so that's all on the same theme now. Now if you look here, you can see I'm working on that slide. If I click there, you'll see the orange border, and I'm working on this slide. Alright, so now we need another slide. So you can go back to home and do your other slide if you want to, or you can see there's a little drop down arrow there, so drop that down. Now you see you can change the style of your slide. There's like title only, or there's a panoramic picture with the title underneath, title and caption, quite a few options there, comparisons. But if you click there, you'll get the same, you'll get the generic one that we've just used, or you can right click and hit new slide there, and there's another way of doing it. Now we've made some more slides, so let's go back to our index, and you'll see the first item on the menu is early morning coffee. So I'll just copy that and we'll go to my next slide and we'll put that in as the title. There we go. And then I can put some text in here if I want to, but I'm just going to put a photograph in there. Now there's two ways of doing it. I can go to the Insert tab, and I can go to Pictures. So I can navigate on my computer for a picture that's suitable, and I've already put some here that might just help. So I'll take that one and we'll insert it. Now you'll see the picture comes in at a certain size, and I can vary that if I want to. I just go to the handle on the end of the photograph and I'll drag it. If I want to drag it the other way, I go to the opposite side, do that, and there we are. There's the photograph taking up most of the page. So there's our early morning coffee slide. I could put some text there if I wanted to. Then we go back to our index, and we'll copy that one, go to our next slide, put that in as the title, and again I'll just put an image there. Now what I could do is I could just navigate to where my image is, and then I could select a few images, say that one, that one, that one, and I could copy them, and then I could come back here and I could paste, and there's one of the images. I can just reduce it. There's another one, reduce it. There's another one. Let's drag that one out and put it there. Let's put this one there, and this one will just overlap the other two a bit on there, and that's another way of putting images on, is just copy and paste. So let's make another slide. It's the easiest way is just right click and add a new slide. So now we're making some progress. Now very early on, sometimes straight after the title, what I like to do is save my work. So to do that, you go to this tab here, which is File, and it's a bit different to the others. It gives you a few options here, but one of them is Save As. So if we click that, I'm just going to save it to my computer desktop. So we'll put it there, but you could save it to the cloud. If you have an account, you can save it to the cloud, and the advantage of that is obviously you can work from any site and any computer as long as you can access the cloud. So that's quite an advantage. If you're saving it on your computer, it's always a good idea to back it up on a memory stick, because if you're going to go and give a presentation, you might have to use a different computer, and then you've got your whole thing on a memory stick and you can just plug it into the computer that you have to use. So anyway, let's just save it on desktop, and I'll just leave the title as Farm Life, and we'll save. Right, now every time I want to save, I can just click there, so that protects me against the computer crashing. And if I really mess up somehow because I don't know what I'm doing, I can go back to an earlier version. And talking about that, if we say click on the next slide and we put in something like mistake, then you can go back there. That's your go back button, so you can do that, and it gets rid of your last action. Now once you've got rid of your last action, you can actually go forward again. This arrow then becomes active, so now I can go back and forward and get rid of that. So now we're going on to the next slide, and I just wanted to make a point here. This slide is called Getting the Tractor Out, so we'll copy that one and we'll go to that slide and we'll put it there. Now it's important when you're getting a presentation ready to make sure that you don't overload your slides with too much text. You need graphics to help people to follow what you're talking about, but also not to overload their mental capacity as you're going through. Our brains actually think in images. They don't think in numbers and in letters. So the more images you can use, the more relaxing it is for your audience to get through and to understand what you're talking about. So I just want to illustrate that for you. I'm going to go in this Word document. I've got a little description of the tractor. So we'll take and we'll paste, copy and paste. There we go. There's a description of the tractor. Now look at that slide and tell me, once you've read through all of this, you're exhausted. So now just to illustrate the point, and I go back to my images and I find an image of the tractor, and I just copy. I just need to get rid of this first, so I select all that text and I press delete. Or I could have gone up here and reversed my last action, but now I've copied the image, so let's paste it. And there's the image of the tractor. And if you compare that to the text, it's much clearer what I'm talking about. There's a picture of the tractor. You don't have to think too hard, and there it is. And because you're not using text, you can use other techniques for people to understand better what you're talking about. For instance, this tractor has a 4-in-1 bucket. So what we could do is go up and click the Insert tab, and then I could insert a text box, which is a little box like that, and in that box I could type in any font that I want to. Right, so there I've indicated that this is a 4-in-1 bucket, but that might not be clear enough, so let's just move this around. We'll put it there, and I might want to just make it a little bit clearer, so I could insert a shape, and if I put the drop down menu I'll find something that looks quite good. So we'll put that there. That's a little arrow, that's a bit small, so let's just make it larger. There we go. So now there's no doubt that's the 4-in-1 bucket. So you can do all those kind of things as well to your images. You can annotate them like that, and that can make it clearer what you're talking about. And then you can verbalize the rest of it while the people are looking at this image. They're not trying to read miles of text, so that's a tip there. Now the other thing, while we're talking about annotating, you can, one of the things that's quite nice if you're new at presenting is if you come down the bottom here and you click this little notes thing, it gives you the opportunity to write notes about something that you want to say. So maybe you have a joke about a tractor, so you can just put, to remind you. The audience won't see this, but it'll just remind you that you need to put in a joke here. So when you're playing back, and I'll show you that now, when you're playing back your presentation, you come here and there's a thing called slideshow. So if you want to play your presentation to see what it's going to look like without all these thumbnails down the side there and all the other stuff, you just go to slideshow, and then you go here, gives you your options for slideshow, and then it says show presenter view. So that gives you the chance to see your notes. There it is there. So the audience will only see this, and you'll be able to see that. So that's a useful little trick. I'll just go back, and we'll just go slideshow on its own. Now, when you're in the slideshow and you're doing your presentation, you're going to need to move from one slide to another. Now, the easiest way is just the forward and back arrows. So if I go back now, it takes me back through all my slides back to the beginning. If I want to go forward, I can either press the space bar, that's it there, or I can just click. So those are your options of moving around. But if you need to go back, then press the back arrow, and that takes you back in your presentation. Now, if you want to get out of your presentation, you just press the escape button in the top left-hand corner of your keyboard, and that brings you back to where you are. The last one, which is end of the day, copy that, then go to my last slide, put that in there, end of day, and then go and find a few graphics for the end of the day, copy those, paste, and then we'll just make those smaller, move them around a little bit. Now, another little trick I wanted to show you. This photograph is now behind the other photographs, but I want it to come forward. So you go up here, here's one of your little options, and you can bring it forward. It's under Picture Tools and Format. So we bring it forward, and there we go. So now I've brought that picture forward, but it's not in front of that one, so we might have to do that again. So I'll click on the picture, that brings up my Picture Tools, and I'll bring it forward once more. Here we go. So now it's the front picture, and I will just minimize it a bit so that you can see the others. And then save, just keep saving all the time so that you've got your draft up to date. Right, now what I would do at this stage, I would go to File, Save As. I'll go to Desktop again, but now I'll save it as second draft. So now if I make any changes to this, I can still go back to my first draft. So that's quite a good tip. Now you can start refining things. You can move slides around if you want to. Let's say you want to put the tractor there, so you can just drag it, click, and then you drag it and put it between those two slides. Obviously you'd have to change your index as well. The other thing that's very useful with PowerPoint is you can animate your text or your images, and that's quite nice, and you can put in transitions, etc. So one of the things you can do is, let's go to animations, and we'll animate that one. I'm just going to say appear. Okay, now you'll see that little number comes up next to it. That means that's the first item on my animation list. So now you go to this thing here, which is your animation pane, so you can put that there. So there's your first item of animation, and if you notice here on your thumbnails, you can see that is animated. Go to the second one, we'll do the same animation on that one. So now you see here in your pane, that's your second animation, 1 and 2. Then we'll do another one. There's number 3, and we'll do that one. There's number 4. Right, now you've got all these animated. Now you've just got to give PowerPoint how you want the animation to work. So if you put the little drop down menu for number 1, we'll say start on click, and we can do that for all of them. Very often when you're introducing a subject, you don't want people to be reading ahead of what you're talking about. So if you're talking about early morning coffee, you don't want them to be thinking, I wonder what the end of the day is looking like, because then they lose concentration. So very often what presenters do is animate their introduction to what the presentation is about. So if I go now to the slideshow, there's nothing on index, but because I told it to bring these up one at a time as I click them, there we go, early morning coffee. So we're going to talk about early morning coffee, then later on we're going to show you what the farm, checking the farm looks like, and then later on blah 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 blah. So that's pretty cool. So that's what I mean now about refining. You can move slides around, you can change things, you can perhaps change the wording here. You can use different images, you can put stuff in, put stuff out. You can even go and change your design if you don't like this particular design. Say you like the design but you want a variation of it, maybe this one. Click on that and you notice all of your slides have been changed to that new variant of that theme. Now, just as a final tip, I suggest getting to your final draft before you actually finalize your presentation. And then if you've got time, leave it for a day or two and let your subconscious creative side work on it. Because the creative side of our brains doesn't function when you tell it to. If you're concentrating on something, you won't be able to be very creative. And writers and painters and those kind of people get their inspiration at weird times when they're not actually concentrating on the particular problem that they're trying to solve. And so this, I found, works for me. If I leave it a couple of days, I'll wake up at 4 in the morning with a damn good idea that I didn't think about when I was actually forcing my brain to come up with solutions. So that's a final tip. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please like and share it and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. And if you have any comments or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Just scroll right down to the bottom and you'll find the comment section there. And if you want notification when our next video comes out, if you click the little bell next to the subscribe button, you'll get notification when the next video comes out. Good luck with your presentation. I hope it all goes well, and thank you very much for watching.